There. Okay. Oh, and then you left. All right. So there we go. We'll see when someone pops up. Da 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 da. Oh, you come back? Okay. Hello, Arizona Gold Hunter and Glenn Webster both jumping in there right on the top of the hour, 4 o'clock. So, and I hope everybody's week's going well. Got me a dog down here to open the show. Hello, monkey bread. Hey, I have a bad monkey. Thanks, Jax, for doing that. Hello, Heritage. Hey, Ed Riley. Everything's good. 78 degrees. Windy, though. It's a bit breezy. What is it? Like up to 28 mile an hour gusts. Steve Wiggins. Hey, how's it going? Bowman. So, got a breeze going. But 78 degrees I'll take after 100 last Friday and Saturday. So, it cooled off again for us. So there we are, kicking it off, the end of another week. So there we are. And of course it's the show with no plan, no template, no structure. Anyways, we tell the weather and then we just figure the rest of it out. Did clean things up behind me, starting to straighten. Forgot to put myself in the new chair again. I'm going to have to remind myself I put myself in this stupid chair that I hate. It's not cool. Well, today is breezy, so it is staying cooler, but we got cloud cover. Hello, Melinda. Oh, there's somebody who hasn't been around for a while, in a minute. But maybe she hasn't commented. Nice collection. Depends what I collected and what collection of what. Anyhow, so we move into another week. And this was the quiet week. This was a week where the week before I'd seen and talked just about. I spent a day with Shoes. I spent a day with Frank. I spent a day with Greg Davis. Spent an evening and dinner with Jesse Feldman. It was like the week of everybody. And then this week was, I didn't really talk to anybody. I talked to Frank briefly. There's Frog. Hey, how's it going? We talked about Sims and Deering account is not the same as Jim Bark's account. Well, Jim Bark was the first person that interviewed everybody. So Jim Bark met them, Julian Reinhardt, when they were out by the ranch. And he was somewhat familiar with both of them from being in town. Sims came into town after all this happened, and then he never spoke to Reinhardt. He only spoke to Julia later. Have you ever used what is that? Variegates as a measurement? No. Are you talking varas? I don't know. I'm kind of lost there. Hey, Lacey and David. You both type in separately from separate rooms in the same place. No, I don't know what variegates are. I know of varas. But that's, that term, which is usually in mapping systems, old Mexican mapping systems and so forth. Random question. We like random. Have you heard anything about Civil War skirmishes and superstitions? No. Well, that was actually Larry Hedrick. Larry Hedrick had a Civil War reenactment group, and they were out there doing their little thing, and that's what Tom's article was about. Larry was a Civil War reenactment guy, and he used to take the group out there and do reenactments. So that's what that article's about. Oh, hey, Louisiana. Hey, Larry. So we lost Melinda on the Vera Gate. And I'm waiting to see if she responds or I remember. And I'm not remembering. The only thing with V's. Oh, okay. I'm skipping a word. It's Varas. Varras. Yes, Varas. It's like a 3-stick length. It's less than a yard, but it varied very much. It wasn't like it was more accurate to the person measuring than in general rule. Okay. I should read the whole sentence or listen to the whole thing, not just jump in and go like, oh, I see one big word, I'll just take that. Varas was generally the principal standard of rule during that time. Well, during the time period of those type of maps that we're looking at, late 1700s, early 1800s. Have you ever used it? Yes, we used to, but see, the problem is there's a little bit of a variation. I think it's mentioned in Kenworthy's books too. But we used to try to kind of throw it on. But one of the problems is most treasure maps are fake. And then people would try to use stuff and then try to always think in standardized terms and misspell and things like that. But then the other problem, I guess, on the other side is a lot of the people that made the maps weren't as educated as they thought. And yeah, it's 27 to 29 inches. Yeah, there's a little bit of variation. It's not quite a foot. It's under a foot. And they'd have these 3 sticks kind of thing. And I'm trying to think of, I know there's a place that has them. And I had them actually measure them for me to it was kind of cool, but it was a bit of varied off. It was coming up on the shorter side of things. This had to be many, many years ago, because I know there was someone had something, and we were trying to figure if there would have been a standard Varas measurement. I have something going on in my area, but I think I have to use these no maps. And that's what's interesting. I remember the sticks. Yeah, it's who made the sticks, and the measurement would always be some variation. I would think, unless it's 1,000 or 1,500 Varas, that you would be able to be somewhat accurate within a foot or so of whatever it said. It shouldn't take you too far off course. Hello from Oklahoma. Hello, Tim. Do you think that has to do with the solstice? The Varas? No, it was just that was a measurement thing. It was just a standard way they would measure certain things. So I don't think it has to do with the solstice. Somebody could wrap it into something like that, but no, because it was a variation on the particular individual. And I'm trying to remember who. Bob Corbin's really good on that stuff, because Bob Corbin's really into the Mexican mining, late Spanish mining and Mexican mining stuff. He knows a lot. And I think that was where we kind of wanted to find some sticks and Varas and start taking and see if we could find some sort of standard measurement. And that had to be at the rendezvous early on. With old Scottish in the area that use sticks. Yes, old Mexican Spanish. Yeah, and I'm sure that's where a lot of measurement came from. Is someone had a stick, and then you'd measure your stick to their stick, and then everybody just kind of, and then we eventually figured out a way to standardize measurement. But I'm sure regionally it would always change. I think with the Varas was something similar to that. You'd have someone from, Arispe, and someone generally from that area would have their sticks, and someone else would have theirs, and they would all just be slightly off from one another. Who knows? So I don't have a book on that. There has to be someone who has a book on Varas and standard, those types of measurement things at all. Not an overall measurement standard book. And I'm trying to think if I have something that touches upon that. I'm sure I have something written by Kenworthy. It was a big shame, and I know he won't now, but Bob Corbin writing a book, not like an autobiography or nothing else, but write a book on a lot of the things he learned like that. Because he went down and he met a lot of people, and he really kind of pulled in a lot of knowledge on little things like that are important. And he was good friends with the Peralta family and so forth. Shoes was too. I'll have to ask Shoes. Shoes might actually know too, because I know he spent a lot of time down there and a lot of southwestern stuff. So he might have kind of a good or better idea on that. That's how we got the short end of the stick. You're funny. Bearing V's range. So, and one of the problems with that kind of measurement and terminology is once someone thinks they have insider knowledge, they start drawing maps using it. Whether they want to spell things right or use the measurements right and so forth. And so it's always an unfortunate aspect of that is, that's where we get all the misspelled stuff, is because the population, the general layman, was uneducated, which I was told by an older gentleman from Mexico named Francisco. And he, through his son was Francisco. I can't remember his name. Sorry, I don't know where that came from. His son's name was Francisco. We called him Nacho. And not the wrestler in the movie, but yeah, Nacho. And then his dad worked with him. He was pretty old. And he sat down with a lot of maps and stuff and kind of explained, he'd say, oh, don't, but he'd tell you, oh, someone put this because of this and because of that. And I remember, he was the one I got a lot of kind of, he could tell you how to make a fake map, and he recognized real maps. There was one map I had, I don't remember what I showed him. I showed him the profile map. He said, meh. And these stone maps, he was, no. But there was one map I showed him, and he said that was very interesting, and he wanted a copy of it. I gave him a copy, and he was explaining the key and the system to it all. I have to find that map. It's a public map, but I just think people just generally don't. Clay Reinhold I think, was one of the sources for it many years ago in a newspaper. And I still don't know where the map came from or how the whole deal with it, because no one seems to know. It's lost in time, but Francisco's dad was very interested in that map, and he explained a lot about it, was talking to me and said there was another map that would go with it, or some information could be like a paragraph or a poem. And he was talking, he was really in depth, he was really into it, and that's why I made him a copy, and then I made him a blown up copy. He was super appreciative. So he also believed in chupacabra, so that could take you the other way. So, okay, Linus, do you place any weight in marker cacti thing in the superstition? Well, okay, I'll get to that. I'm here listening at work. The marker cactuses, I think, were used. You have to be careful, because a lot of times they were used, and I've seen some, and someone took me through an area, and I understood what the real principle would be. They were up higher, and if you were on a horse or a mule or burro, you would see them, and you could get sight line from one to the other. It was very interesting. So I kind of believe that, and this wasn't in the superstitions. This was more in the southern Sonoran Desert. The superstitions, our big problem is, well, I think the RP cactus goes back a way. Everybody liked to make blazes and liked to mark cactuses. There are probably 1,000 marked cactuses in the superstitions. And one of the best stories I ever had about it was we were sitting one night and someone told me where there was one nearby where we were camped. And I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And as we were talking, another guy said, yeah, I'm pretty sure Bob Ward showed me that one. And then someone else said, well, I think Bob made that. And then someone said, Well, did Bob find it or did he make it? And it became this thing of like, they couldn't remember whether Bob made it, Bob found it, or Bob created it because it fit with whatever. And it became a funny discussion. Everybody said even Bob himself would forget when he created things to support his story. And that was why when I don't think it's in the TV show, we're down at the Knife Rock and Knife Hill, and I pointed, there was a cactus with a blaze. And I said, I don't remember it being there, but I don't remember it not being there. So it was hard to tell if it was something pertaining to Knife Hill, and Bob Ward was so involved in that, I could have seen him very well doing that to support it. It was higher up, and sometimes the ones that are higher up don't catch your eye when you're on the ground, but we were elevated at the time is why I kind of caught it. And I know there's several, but there was a couple I saw. But then once everybody knows the higher up ones, then you start finding marks higher up. There was a cactus, a blaze cactus. I'm trying to remember what it was blaze on. Going in over Cardiac, down into Barks Draw. And I remember that one was there. I'm trying to remember what we called that cactus. It's right there on the side of the trail. It's not there anymore. I was really sad. I think the cactus naturally went down, but it was there for a long time. And it had a kind of a particular, whatever the symbol or whatever it was known as. I have a picture somewhere of it, but yeah, that one's gone. RP cactus is gone. We tried always mark on a rock the symbol or whatever was on it, and then make a pylon and then put the rock down there, so we remember the spot and space of where these cacti were. Plan a trip to the Goldfield Ghost Town. Tell me what I don't want to miss. Just do everything, man. Fish Creek Hill. Well, I don't know when the trip's going to be planned, but Fish Creek Hill should be open this fall. So, to four-wheel drive. Four-wheel drive high clearance, but they're supposed to get the hill back open this fall. Patch, even if you just go to Fish Creek Outlook and come back, that's a beautiful drive. If everything's open and you got the vehicle with the clearance, drive all the way to Roosevelt and back, or the Roosevelt and around. That gets you the north end of the Superstition. Beautiful country. Check out Goldfield. Go down to First Water. Take an easy hike up to Garden Valley, or just walk down into the area. Get a feel. Peralta's a little different. There's no real just easy trip. You got to go up to Fremont or up Cardiac. There's not a real easy place, but you can always do. Go out to the Lost Gold Mine Trail and walk around the base of the southwest end. But I would say just hit different spots and get a kind of a feel if you've not really been out here and stuff, and just kind of absorb. And you never know who you'll meet. That's the cool thing. Different times of the year. Do the zip line. Yeah, do the zip line. Do the mine. Do the shack. Do the Mammoth Burger. Do the train. Do Luann's train. When I'm there, I just walk around and say hello to everybody and check. So my fascination was when Bob built the place, how he built it with very limited resources, very limited help, and how he put that thing together. I'm always asking him about really particular things that drives him crazy, because I'm just amazed. How did you manage this? Okay. Greensway, Gil Gold, Prospecting, San Antonio, takes wherever the Golden Day. Sure do appreciate you. Thank you. Make sure you go by the museum down the street. And the museum's kind of sucks anymore. I'm sorry. I don't mean to piss them off again, but they took all the cool stuff out, and it kind of got lame. Kind of BS anymore. I don't know. They've just kind of lost a little bit of the sight and vision of the whole thing. They got some good books in there. Little wider range on the books. I'd say go down there to pick up some books. Maybe see Teton Ken, Pet the Burro. But it's kind of a shame because they've kind of veered off. Shoes is finishing up the upstairs where he has the Rogers Trough tunnel being built. So hopefully he'll have that done soon. And that'll be very cool. Have you heard anything? Oh, hold on, I gotta go back up. Do you guys and Frank ever look for any goods or gems? Have found any gold nuggets in the desert without Yeah, because Frank found that one up on by Black Crust Butte. It was laying right on the surface. He was kind of looking kind of for the layout of the things, and then there was one just laying on the surface. We were filming. It was right after. Remember, there's a point where he talks about that cactus. There was a short cactus that had a funny arm, and he did that. I was off doing something else, and then Frank got really excited. Found that nice piece of gold, probably about $25 worth of gold, just laying there, placer, on the surface. And he was kind of like, hey, check this out. And they told him they didn't want to film it, they didn't want to use it because we weren't finished with the season. It would seem anticlimactic. And I was thinking, no, it shows you that there's gold in the area, that you're on the right path. But it was very odd. They were very funny about that, but that happened right there. Where that cactus was, where I found the quartz stringers that got cleaned out. And there was another thing we found was we could tell where they'd been screening dirt up the hill. And so we figured somebody was working in that area. And they left all that stuff out, which I thought would have worked in the show because it would have shown we're in an area that's conducive to gold. Till later we went out there, and that's one of the first videos we filmed for YouTube was... we went out and took the Falcon out and found out that dirty quartz out there was just full of fine gold through it. But it would cost you $1 million to get $250,000 out of it. So the extraction process would be too expensive to make it worthwhile. Sorry, I'm getting low. I don't know why I'm getting low. Kind of going low. But yeah, we found gold without a detector. And usually we find artifacts without. It's usually because we're just looking at the ground, and it's always odd like that. I mean, Frank was out with the detector when we were out near First Water and by the Palmer mine area. And we were out there, and that was when I found that cache, the geocache stuff. And it was just visual. It was just purely picking up little things visually. So you find as much stuff probably just looking around as you do actually using the equipment. Have you heard anything about a mysterious sniper up in the super my dad had? Let me go up there. I haven't heard anybody. Well, back in the 70s, you get shot at. The 80s, you still might occasionally. I don't think anything really happens much anymore. I haven't heard anybody taking a shot at anybody anymore. There's some hunters back in there. There are people go out there for coyotes and for deer. Bighorn sheep, they'll be up higher elevation away from you. There could be people out there for mountain lions, but I haven't had a problem, and you don't hear near as much back in the mountains. If you want to hear gunshots, go down around by Hewitt Road, go in by Queen Creek, Hewitt Road. A lot of people practice and target shoot down there, but up in the Superstitions, it's not as prevalent anymore. It's become a little more rare, because when you hear it, it just kind of catches your attention. But I think the last few years we'd been in and out of Fish Creek, I don't think we'd heard any gunshots at all. Unless Frank decides to start shooting because he just gets happy. So no, nothing about a mysterious sniper that I've known of. Geodes. I know there's someone that finds geodes out there somewhere, and I can't remember where it was. They were pretty into the geode thing. Cold beer at the Mammoth. Sorry, Wayne, I was there 3 years ago. It was 3 years ago when I was there, okay? Yeah, they like to... in the early 70s. Yeah, so everybody was protective. They were very, very protective of where they thought things were, whether they filed a claim or not. And if you filed a claim and had been there 10 years, it didn't matter because they had actually figured it out and you didn't really know what you were doing. And they were very particular about stuff. And you had some larger groups in there of people, like Crazy Jake's outfit and Ken Worthy's out. You had larger groups in there that would kind of I don't know, they were living the Wild West a little too much. So you had those problems, and then sometimes people just thought they would scare people off and stuff, which happened to me a couple times. And that was unfortunate because the reputation came through. Now in the 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s, you could have been more likely to get shot. I think that started to play off, even though we did point out, I think I did that thing, was live in my truck. This is years ago, and I don't know how to find it. I have to find that one. But I went through of all the people who had died in the mountains, been shot, killed, found, had decapitations and stuff. The deaths in the Superstition, there was more in the 80s and 90s than in the 60s and 70s, which was surprising. So, go figure that one. So as soon as you got it figured out, you don't. Let's see, that one guy was shot off a rope. No, he wasn't. He fell off the rope. Fell off the rope. That Clay Worst was there. I have that actual story recorded with Clay. We were out camping, and Clay told me the story, and I videoed him talking about that because he was out there, and I think, I'm not going to swear by it, but Dick Walp, I think, was out there. Dick Walp or someone else was out there. Anyways, he fell off the rope. His partner got down and said he had fallen and was freaked out. When they went to go out with the helicopter and get close to see if they could see where he was or rescue the other guy, when they went to do that's when they got shot at. And Clay was like, they couldn't tell where it came from or who it was. But I know Clay was there in the area. He went down to the area because they heard the scream. And the guy screamed when he fell. And then I'm trying to think of who the other person in the area was that I know. There's always a few of those guys at the rendezvous. And I'm pretty sure it might have been Dick Walp. Because Clay was near, and then Dick came down. And they got the one guy off the needle. And the other guy was dead. And they got shot at the helicopter when they kind of got in the area and went by the needle. So who knows who it was. They may not even be around anymore. Wonder if anyone got that red toolbox you found. Well, it was a geocache. So it has ping pong balls in it. And I don't know. We should I should make a trip out there just to see if they moved it or if it's still there in the same spot. And then find something really cool to put in it. And then put our YouTube and then tell someone or do something where say, hey, take a picture and upload it, send it, post it on Facebook if you find it. That'd be kind of cool. But, I signed it for me and Frank and Trevor, I believe. Pretty sure. It's got I put a note in it and everything and all that. One got shot. Can't tell. Well, okay. Well, anyways, Clay said somebody was shooting at the helicopter, and that was God. When did he tell me that? It was probably 2006, 2005. I get a few pictures of the three guys that were following me. There you go. Post them. That's the way to get back at them. Garmin has that story of being stalked, and Mr. Well, he wasn't stalked. They shot at him. That was down on the south end of Miner's Needle when they were approaching Miner's Needle and going in. Yeah, that was one of his last trips for Herman. And then after that, it was all over. Herman, they got back after that trip, I believe, and that's when they found out Herman had died. But yeah, the helicopter. We'll have to find that. I have to look around where that tape is because it's on mini DVR, and I do have that recorded somewhere. And I don't think it's up posted on our stuff because I haven't seen it. It's daytime. We're sitting there. It's me, Clay, and Jake, the dog. My dog, Jake. I don't know if Jake's in it that much, but Jake was there, and me and Clay, and we were just talking. And I was going to probably get hours of great stuff. And unfortunately, people started coming over and sitting down, and then Clay started asking Clay dumb questions. And I was like, man, it was really cool because he was talking about each little detail. He was very carefully and slowly talking about, who was out there, and almost like a minute-by-minute account of the whole thing. So I thought, this is going to be some cool stories because it's a little different than him just telling a story. It's him being very detailed with me about stuff. And I was just shutting up. And then people started to come over to sit down because they're like, oh, this is interesting. And Clay will pause. And he'll just sit there for a minute, and then he'll start again. Well, every time he'd pause, people started asking questions. And then Clay kind of was like, okay, whatever. And it wasn't as, not as much fun. You did Untreasure that good. I'll have to look for that. I know who they were. They could not read a map, I guess. Well, there you go. But they're revealed to the world. I don't know about these blinds. I think I'm going to get dark in here. I feel like the sun's setting on me as we speak. Should have opened the blinds a bit better. Jax, can you open the blinds? Nope. Okay. Need to have you learn. You got to take that little pole and turn it. Open the blinds. Yes. All right. So there we are. So we started off on Vara's. That'll give me something to read up on, because I know I have to have something a little more in depth, or call Bob Corbin and talk to Bob about it. And then the next step, because anytime I'd ask Tom about stuff like that, he'd say, just ask Bob Corbin. Ask Bob. Bob knows all that stuff, you know. He said, don't listen to anybody else. Everybody else is full of crap. Listen to Bob. So, Shoes would know maybe too, though. But I don't know if Shoes is into history, so he's really into history, so he would have paid attention, but yeah. So, Shoes might know or something. But he always knows a more general idea and stuff. But Corbin really studied that stuff. I went down and checked a lot of it out. So the lady who was running all those incursions to Weaver's Needle, Celeste Jones, saying that was Spotter Hole entrance, the cavern where the treasure is at. I think she was long gone from there. It wasn't Celeste Jones, but Celeste wouldn't shoot at people up on the needle. She'd shoot at Ed Piper, but she wouldn't shoot at people up on the needle. She said, didn't she hire the guy to do it? I don't know. But it's kind of funny because there's a mixed odd thing, because there's a number of people that really liked her, but they always thought she was crazy, just completely wacko. But they seemed to also, if you would talk to them, say they really actually liked her. She seemed to treat a lot of people really nice. Ed Piper did too. So their feud is, they just obviously were oil and vinegar to one another. But there was a lot of people that liked both. Corbin knew her very well. Corbin was around both. And, you know, Corbin will tell you, he'll sit there in a group of people and tell you how crazy and off the wall she was and stuff. And so would Tom. And then I'd be talking to them privately, and they would talk about how actually quite nice she was. She always would reassure Tom that if she was able to get into the cash and get the treasure, she would pay for Tom's college and make sure he was taken care of, because he was too smart to be out there in the mountains and all. So she had best intentions for the people she liked. I'm into both. That's why, as you, I don't even know what we're talking about. And the randomness of the conversation. But Richard, that description is okay. Close. Just that. Okay. There's a lot of conflicting info in Texas. Not clear. Okay. Sometimes I get kind of lost. We go too far, and then I try to go back. But yeah, we did the one on maps. I still think when I did the one on maps where I tore them up and threw them away, I should have burned them. I told Trevor it would have been more fun to burn each one. That was kind of BS. We did just used to do something with the fish map, so that was very cool. I'm getting to handle that again, go through it. I'm always just there's something. I know belief is one thing when you kind of believe in something, but always with the fish map is different to me, because whenever I got the fish map out and out of the glass case and stuff, the real one, it just strikes me different. The same with Shoeses, which I don't know what to call that, called the De Andrea map. Those always struck me different, and it wasn't, I just from the beginning always felt different about them. There's something about them. So I don't know, and I couldn't tell you offhand if there's what it is exactly about them. Me and Wayne still didn't see eye to eye on Dr. Ruth's murder. Well, you can't, because he wasn't murdered. Richard, head out there, go stand in that spot, and then go stand where the skull was found, and then you go figure out where the camp really was, and it'll all kind of change your mind. But we'll eventually do that, because I've told Trevor we have to go out and do that. So I think everybody reads books and then they look at maps and they see a mark on a map and they don't really understand. Like I said, the first thing that throws you off is quit thinking blacktop. quit thinking on blacktop. Don't think it like along the slopes of blacktop. Start thinking like the basically the washes that feed into Needle Canyon. So kind of start getting in particular, but I think they want, because there's so many places in Needle Canyon, it's just easier to say in the foot, at the foot of Blacktop. And I know even some maps put him around the corner from where he was actually found, but it's still there. It's marked where they found the physical remains. Well, Frank Fish was the real deal. I'm not just the map, and I didn't know nothing about him when I first saw the map, when I first saw the real map. So. But, the Ruth stuff, to me, is I just keep going through it. And, there, I think with Adolf Ruth, Gary Cundiff and Larry Hanna did great work and kind of supported everything they had, kind of supported my thoughts. But the problem is there's people out there who decided to make up a lot of stuff and make up some history. And that's one of the most dangerous things about forums, is people get in there and it's that double-sided sword. They can say anything they want, and they can make up crap, and they can completely, utterly just BS everybody, social media and stuff. And then when someone tries to call them out on it, you got to be banned. Oh, you got to be kicked out. You can't talk because you insulted him. And that's a shame, because there are people that have been... and it will be surprising, and you just don't want to get into it too much about some of these people, but they're absolute. They're not deluded. I mean, there are people I would say, you can say, well, they're wrong, they're delusional, they've never really done much, they made 3 trips here their whole life. This is someone's been out here and around people, and people, someone that could be respected if they weren't such a liar. And the problem is they've made up a ton of crap, and they know who they are, and they creep out from underneath that little, from their little, whatever, under their slimy rock once in a while, and start. And the problem is they sometimes tell half the truth and half BS, and sometimes they just do utter BS. And it's a shame when they do, because they've kind of like screwed up some people, and they've screwed up a lot of history. And when people try to call them out, and a couple of them have been called out recently, but they always have to come back for more. They have to come back for more. And, I don't know. So maybe the day comes we do a special story on them, just to kind of, and it, I'm going to tell you this, sometimes when you do that, you talk around a campfire or something, and that's where I'll talk to people about these people. But when you start to, you can see it in people's eyes when they suddenly start realizing the truth, that they really thought this guy knew something, and they really thought something of this guy, and then they start finding out, oh no. And there are a lot of people like that, unfortunately. There's still the crazy Jakes, and they're, those kind of people. The Chuck Crawfords, a lot of those guys with some of the stuff, their way to make a buck and stuff and take advantage of people. Those people still exist, unfortunately. I corrected thousands of charts in the Navy. Okay? You have to know your shit. So there would probably be a box of the Ruth family treasure maps. Well, I don't know. That was something that was never clear, and Paul Shimmick would know. I know him, Gary Cundiff, Larry Hanna, a lot of them. They worked on a lot of different stuff concerning that, and I don't think Paul jumps in this, and I don't think he'd jump out and say, hey, I'm here. But Paul, if you were here, it'd be cool if you kind of like were able to say, I don't think we ever had an answer to what happened. I think because Adolf Ruth was a map collector, cartography, I think he traded and gave stuff away, and I think there's a couple references where Irwin says that he'd been already giving stuff away and stuff, and he does that in a letter to someone saying he's not sure if it was given away. If it's still with the maps, he wouldn't be able to pick out the maps from any other maps, probably necessarily. So you got to figure the guy probably had hundreds, if not hundreds and hundreds of maps and all this different stuff, and he probably knew his system and so forth. I would say right now, the way a lot of stuff's organized in the garage, there's 6 filing cabinets, 5 drawers. There's probably at least 20 boxes of files. And when you start, and then there's the discs and stuff. When you look at the amount of material, documentation, I know what I have. Some of it I could probably find pretty quick. I'd know where to look and stuff. I think for Trevor it would be a nightmare. It would be like forever in a day trying to figure out what system I was using at times, because I have different thought processes on different things, and I think, I've tried to correct that by filing things that, it has to do with this, but it could do with this, and then just make an extra copy and put it in that as well. So, but who knows? I don't think there's ever been, anyone's ever said what happened to all the maps. All I know is by the time Gene Reynolds had been out there was a bookcase with some books, but I think most of the stuff had been boxed up or given away or thrown out. So there was the letters, though. Eleanor had the letters. Eleanor Ruth. I don't know if she's still alive. I don't think she is. Again, if Paul was here, he could comment. But she got the letters together. It was one of those very cool things where we had the letters from Erwin Ruth and the letters from Clay Wurst. So we had both sides of the correspondence for the years they were talking to each other, which was very cool. And we got there was other documentation material they had saved. But I don't think anyone ever came up with a single map. So, and they were looking for that book too, because Gene Reynolds really wanted someone to find that book. What turned you against the profile map? Randy Wright, his research and studying, and a lot of other versions of it that preceded it and had been around for quite some time. It actually started when I realized, without realizing it, that one of the maps that Adolf Ruth had was something he'd been given, I think it was by Sim Zeeley. And I started realizing, or Erwin had got from some, but anyways, I started realizing, hold it, there's something odd here, and it's appearing in books before it should have been in books, because it's in Killer Mountains, but no one ever had it, but it's appearing over here. And I started looking at it, and then Randy, I was looking for Julia Thomas, and the stuff for Julia Thomas and Albert Schaefer. And while I was looking into that and trying to put together a package on that, Randy Wright was working on two things, the rice paper map and the profile map. And he finished the profile map stuff. He posted it all on a forum. Everybody just tried to blow him off. And I realized, wow. And it's like, man, that sucks. Because I saw it immediately. And he did a really good job of just showing the kind of creating a lineage and custody of various things and so forth. And so, though people sometimes think, the original versions of the profile map, what preceded it, are nothing like it. It's kind of there, but it's not. You can tell someone sat down and really fleshed that thing out. And that was a problem with Erwin. He didn't know where things were coming from and how things were being incorporated, because he was collecting stuff because of his, not interest in the Dutchman, but into his father's death. So he was collecting and keeping material, and because of that, it kind of, I think, stuff got lumped in. So I thought for a while the Frank Fish map, the profile map, could have been linked to the Frank Fish map, but then Frank Fish would have realized that. He would have said, well, the profile map's the other half. And the fact that he didn't do that kind of said a lot. But no, Randy, I'm going to someday find if, the powers that be over at the old site, and you can't use the Wayback Machine. It's all gone. Very little of it's left through that. But I'm going to find someone. I know Joe Roboto was going to try to find it for me, and Joe passed away, and I'm sure his stuff's long gone. But Randy did an excellent step-by-step through analysis of these different maps and who had what and the chains of custody of the different maps. And I found it fascinating, and it just killed me. The profile map was my map. It was from the very first time I was introduced to the story itself. that was my map. And then Randy did that, and it was just that obvious. It was just literally, I read his thing, I felt like crap, felt nauseous. And it wasn't turning me, it was just me seeing, oh. And some of it had been out there in front of me, but when Randy did it, I was like, and Randy wasn't trying to change anybody's mind. He was just trying to show, these different material and put it together. And he was a bit surprised. So I think he probably was a bit too with the profile map. But he did an excellent job. So the maps, El Cerrito is like stone maps. Well, I don't know, because I don't know if the profile map has one thing to do. Barry Storm has one of the early profile maps in it, his book. And it's pretty. You can see it. It doesn't have the SEMA and all this crap on it. It's some lines. It's more like what the Herman drawing thing. It's a drawing of some profile, which would be why it would be the profile map. It was the profile map because of maybe more of that. And I don't think Ruth had that. Ruth's map that everybody talks about was a topographical map that had stuff marked all over it. Irwin never comments what the actual Gonzales maps looked like. I've never found that Irwin said he rarely saw them. He didn't really remember them. And everything, including Gus Barkley, Jeff Adams, everyone that mentioned the map that Ruth was found with had stuff marked up, but it was a topo map. So that map was much different. I don't know. And that's the thing. That's the map you want. If it, people say, "Oh, I found nobody knew they had it. The Barclays had the Adolph Ruth map." No, the map you'd want to find would be that topo map. And there's not much of a description of it, and I don't know who would have ended up with it. If the Ruth family ended up with it or whatnot. There's only mention here and there of it, and it's mentioned in the newspapers. Barkley mentions it, Adams mentions it, the sheriff McFadden mentions it, the Pinal County sheriff mentions it. So it was a number of different sources we have that mention that map did exist, and that it was found with Ruth, and it was a topographical map that he'd written stuff on, and they went to kind of look in the area. And don't believe the 3 to 5 day trip and all that crap. But they had found that map, and I don't know if they thought he misinterpreted the map or whatnot, but that's the map. And since we don't have that map, we can't compare it to anything else. But that's the only map I would trust, but we don't have much of a description. I'm surprised nobody's ever tried to fake it, because all you'd have to need is a pre-1930 topographical map of the area of some sort, and get something, and then so I'm really surprised nobody's faked it. One will show up now. The topo map probably buried with Purnell and Keenan. Well, because the sheriff. See, that's the thing. The topo map was with Ruth's remains. It's in the report. Adams talks about it. Barkley, they all talk about it. So when they found the body, they found that map. And then Irwin's conflicting, saying he took the originals with him. Oh, he didn't take them with him. He took some tracings. No, all he left behind was tracings. We don't really know if the tracings, what they were, which the Gonzales. Because remember, it was a whole bunch of maps, and there was Gonzales maps, and then there was maps. Didn't make sense, and Adolph Ruth was told, "Oh, those are the Peralta family maps," but we're never told, except for Irwin, which ones are which. And Irwin, in letters to various people, says, "I couldn't tell you which one was which. I'm pretty sure this is them, but I don't know. I never really looked at them." So any map has to have the same type of scale measurement, or is it just a drawing? Yeah. Well, most of the time, and who knows what Ruth was looking at? That's the thing. So it's kind of odd, but yeah, anybody who looks into it and takes serious discussion. I have always said the book that I think I would want to write would be one on Adolph Ruth, of all the information and material and stuff, and then kind of like start pointing out how all the conspiracies and that stuff started, because people were just too lazy. But it was, the newspapers built it up and stuff, but there's journals and diaries and people talking about what was happening at the time, and it's a very, very interesting story. But I have a feeling it's more of a story of an elderly gentleman who was physically incapable, that found himself in a bad spot in a bad way. And you have to remember, the newspaper accounts even talk when they found his things. When they find his body, his leggings had been taken off, folded up neatly, and set down beside him. So when he died, he was trying to cool off, most likely. And I really kind of hate that there's, if you put your time in and look at the newspaper accounts and the stories and the actual documentation, it's like, okay, oh yeah, okay, so Abe Reed shot him and beheaded him, but he also neatly took off the skeletal remains, took off his gaiters, and then just folded them up neatly and set them next to the body while the other shit was just tossed around. It's chances are he was sitting there and he went to stand up and he probably was just about done and thinking, I got to get back to camp or something, or get to some water or whatever's going on, and didn't realize. And then he got up, and then things probably went to black, or he fell and then probably couldn't get himself physically back up off the ground and was laying there. And then the heat comes up the day, probably was early morning, and then the heat came up in the day, and that was it. He just didn't have a chance. That's probably what happened. And I'm pretty 99% sure I just nailed it on the head. But yeah, sometime read all the documentation. There's the old Lost Dutchman forum from Rod Feldman's forum. There's a link that Gary Cundiff and Larry Hanna put together material, and you can go read all the newspaper articles and a lot of that stuff. And you start taking that stuff and going through and finding more newspaper articles and search. It's very interesting. It tells a different story than you think. They were going for the controversial story in the newspapers, but there's also a very simple story there. Abe Reed ruined one sleeping bag packing the remains. Yeah. Yeah, okay. I don't think so. I always found that ridiculously funny. Yeah, the witness, which I think was Ted Cox, not a good witness. Ted Cox said, yeah, Abe Reed was packing what looked like a headless body wrapped in a blanket. How do you know it's a headless body wrapped in a blanket? Ruth's gun was full of bullets. Yeah, it was full of bullets. He never shot it. No reason to shoot it. Yeah, but his thermos was empty, which is a sign that and he only had that thermos on him, which was ridiculous being out there in the summer. No, it's just, if you look at things and there's several pictures, I always thought that would be the book. Kind of crush kind of a lot of the conspiracy, a lot of the BS. It's not fair to people. Tom Collingwood, a lot of people knew Abe Reed. Tom's dad was friends with Reed. A lot of people say he was a super nice guy. He'd been into some bad things early in life, but he was a really gentle guy, very, very nice guy. And they find it actually insulting what people say about him. Said he was not that way at all. And then you have the people that didn't like him, and those people got front page, I guess. So, but, and then the other what's problematic too is when Adolph Ruth died, and during that time period, and right after that for a number of years, is when Reed was still down by Blacktop and down in Needle Canyon a lot. So it doesn't make sense that he was out. He's out by the Silver Chief, the Pit Mine. And that's where he's really at, though he's not really. And then he takes Ruth's body, mysteriously dumps it right where he's actually working, and has claims to take people out of the real area to the fake area that he's actually physically working at the time. Because I think it's a number of years later that he shows up, and then he out by Reed's Water, and then he starts working out there. I just had this long conversation with someone about it, but Tom's dad helped him because there was a road out there, but Tom's dad was out there and the well and stuff, and Tom's mom and Tom got out there, and they had a picnic out there several times. But yeah, that was A breed is very different A breed than then they just portray that. It's really odd. If you start looking at the stories and then you start going through, you start finding they don't match up where people are and stuff. That was something I always thought was ridiculous. Is that we just take things verbatim from a book and then people start becoming know-it-alls and stuff, and then you read a journal and you go, well, hold it, that doesn't make sense to this. And then that person that I'm kind of speaking of told me, well, how could you trust that person's word? I don't know. He wrote it down in 1935. There was no books. He wasn't competing with a book or a forum then. He wrote something down privately. You who never were there in the area or knew any of these people somehow are the expert on it. Yeah, okay. So it's funny. So I started trusting that stuff, and not so much to tell me the full story, but let me know where people were. Seriously though, poor Ruth. And it is sad. The whole thing is sad because, yes, I think he was so excited and he probably thought he was bulletproof, and unfortunately he wasn't. And I don't mean that he got shot bulletproof. He thought he was invincible. He'd gotten away with it before, and I think he really seriously thought nothing was going to happen. And unfortunately, that's what it is, That does happen. Ooh, we're almost done for the day. Wow. But good talk. So, but yeah, covered a lot of ground today. We always get back into some of the same olds. I'll have to go through one of these one day and bring up some of that documentation and read some quotes from some things. But, I always say it's out there, so if people people don't have to work that hard to find that stuff. In the photos, you mean that as a joke? In the black and white photos, it doesn't look green. Okay, let me explain something, and I'll explain this very quickly. When they found the bodies of two of the Utah guys, and there's pictures of them, and I have the photos of them, they don't look green. They've been out exposed probably less time, but not much different than the Adolf Ruth case. They're in kind of similar condition. The animals, because of the rocky terrain, didn't really tear it up or rip them apart or anything like that. Didn't scatter them the same. Of course, they weren't on a slope, and there wasn't a bunch of storms and stuff that would have kind of moved them around and stuff. I know I was told that when you got anywhere within 25 yards of them, you almost couldn't breathe. It stunk so bad. They had went missing in August, and I think they were found in December or January. So it's a few months shorter, but it was that bad in the open air after the desert. They were just bones, okay? Ruth, people thought he was buried and dug up and all that stuff. I've seen skeletal remains of animals that have been out there and deteriorated, and there is a stink for quite some time. So Ruth's remains to be 6-7 months later, still greenish, and that, yeah, it's very possible. And with the rain and everything else, no, and I've been around. I'm speaking from terms of coyotes, cattle, and bighorn sheep. And they, it's just what it is. So I really believe that, yes, Ruth's skeletal remains match up with the same thing of the exposure and everything of others that have been found out there. It's almost identical, so not much you can do. Hey, Bobby. Bobby showed up. Thank you, Bobby. You saw some of the Utah photos? Yeah, did you get them? Did you see them from Greg, or who did you see them from, Bobby? Can you tell me? Because I know who has them. At one point, I was the only person left that had any. Some of them, because some of the first generation from the originals was, and one of the original files was burned up. So I know Greg Davis basically. What? Oak? Okay, I get it. All right. That's interesting. Bobby, we need to talk. But, yeah. very interesting. A lot of stuff was burned up in a fire and stuff, and then Greg Davis and a number of people were like, "What happened to him?" So I know right now 3 people still have some. So, but yeah, then there, people always ask me, why wouldn't you post those or put those out there and stuff? And they're disturbing, and they all had family. And I don't think the families have ever seen them, and that's just kind of bad taste to put those up. It's not. It's kind of morbid curiosity. I wanted to see it. If you, Bobby, if you want to see something, Greg Davis went out to the area and then had people lay down in the same poses on the rocks as where the bodies were found, so you could get a good feel for the area. So that one was weird. I did not lay down on rocks and have my picture taken. Hey, Bowman, you too. Was that your only time seeing corpses? What are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about. No, but no, it had nothing to do with that, seeing corpses. The idea is in the desert, and I've talked to a number of people, but then what I've always been able to look at is very similar. So, and I talk to a number of people that are involved in the search and rescue groups and stuff like that, and compare notes and stuff. So you kind of got an idea, especially if you find something, so you kind of know, kind of like whether or not it's like something more important. No, I saw 182 men go down at sea. I'm sorry that happened with you. Where is Robert Fisher? Boy, that's a funny one that you brought up. Where is Robert Fisher? Everybody here is going, what? Hey, Attaway girl. Or is it girl Attaway? But Robert Fisher. And for anybody here who does not know, Robert Fisher was, I think he was a fireman. I don't know what he was doing. Anyways, he killed his family. Then he burned their bodies in the house. Went on the lam. Disappeared up in the rim area. And no one's found him since. They think he was where he was. I know there's been a couple times people think they know where he's been. It's kind of what's really strange. Is that when I was working at Shuck Component Systems, one day I went in the office and there was someone down there. And I don't know what the guy was doing there. I don't know if he was buying, he was picking up lumber, what the whole deal was. But I was in the yard and I turned and I kept looking at this guy and thinking he seemed absolutely 100% familiar, and I could not put my freaking finger on it. And I sat there and waiting for him to finish who he was working with. It was one of the salesmen. And then I had to go over and, check on an order of something. And then it was later, I was like, it rang a bell. The guy was a dead, perfect, and this is within 2 years, a couple of years, looked like him. And I went up and asked who the guy was, and the person said he was just picking up. I didn't get his name. I said, didn't he look like Robert? And then that person got spooky eyes too, like, whoa. And I said, yeah, it was so weird. I said, I couldn't figure out who he was. And I don't know if it was him, but I've heard a couple other stories that are not mine to tell concerning Robert Fisher. Yeah, it's interesting. You say go down Young Road. But a lot of people believe he's still around. And I don't know, it's kind of a sad story, but because of what happened to his family and so forth. But a lot of people believe he's just still out there and he's still making do. And that's unfortunate for what he did and what he caused. And nobody really, really understands or knows the story. So somebody go find Robert Fisher. But there is a story about him being in a particular place, and they believe it could have been him. And and I've never been able to follow it up. Hopefully, maybe in the next year or so, I'll follow up kind of some of the information concerning that. But it was interesting, And here's the funny thing: when it involves something like that, and time goes up, the authorities don't want to believe people when they tell them, oh, I think I saw so-and-so, or there's a follow-up or something. And they wait way too long to finally think, oh, it could have been him. And one of these stories is there was someone in a certain place, and then they found out later He was very familiar with the area, and he could have been in the area. It made a lot of sense. And by then, it was a year or two later, and it was that person had moved on. So it's very possible that they could have caught him, or at least got close or had some knowledge. But yeah, unfortunately, that guy deserves to get caught. I don't mean to condemn people, judge people, but yeah, I don't know how you say you accidentally murdered your family and burned them all in the house and then disappeared like that. And then the worst part is almost the touch at the end is he tied the dog to the car and left. So that was rough. So that being said and done, we're coming down to the end of the day. Yeah, okay. Yeah, it is that time. So coming down to the rough end of the day. I'm going to have to, that white chair really does stand out behind me, doesn't it, when I start to move over? Yeah. Okay, next week, I need to remember to sit in the white chair because this chair is killing me again. I bought a new chair. Trevor took it away. He said, oh, no, you can use it. Yeah, thanks for letting me use my own chair. But I forgot again today to sit in it. I sat down, and I didn't even cross my mind to go sit in my comfortable new chair. So here I am. My butt's hurting again because this is not a place where I should have been. Thanks for everybody for joining me. I'm always still surprised 500-600 people show up for these things. I do not understand. I don't know. Maybe we should do it live where you could see me in person and throw me money. Throw money. That's what we'll call the show, Throw Money. Interesting conversation tonight. Always cool. Yeah, Bobby, we need to talk. The shoemaker mine story was great. The next one I got two stories, and I'm kind of going back and forth between them. Next one might be interesting too. I'm trying to decide which one I want to go with it for this Monday. I'll tell both eventually, but it's just, sometimes you're like, what follows the last one so well? Thanks again, Wayne. Have an awesome weekend. Thank you. Always enjoy the live videos. Well, it's always fun. It's supposed to be kind of a follow-up and kind of touch base and don't die yet. I don't plan to. Need someone to dig. I can supervise and watch dig. We can sit there together, drink beer. Okay, River Dave. I don't know who River Dave is. Sometimes I know who people are. And River Dave, I'm about to be a time traveler. Okay, cool. You're going back in time. Oh, are you going back to watch the beginning of this? Doesn't take much on a Friday afternoon to throw me off and slow me down. It's when it's a long week and you get there and then people say things and I'm about to be a time traveler. And then, Foreigner. What's that song from the first album? Oh, I'm killing myself today. I don't know. Now that I'm trying to think of what that song is, now I'm thinking of the Joker and I'm the Space Cowboy, which is more fitting for me now. Oh, Star Rider from the first four. That song's like in the background of my head, time traveling. And I'm like, yeah, and I'm way too freaking tired. See, this is where I kill myself here. All right. Any Four Peaks stories, give them up. I only want to jump around and move around a little. There's a lot of Four Peaks stories. You gotta finish Sunsets. Yes, that's getting wrapped up. Yes, okay, so I kind of got something right. It took me a moment. I once got drunk at Four Peaks, but not the mountains. Yeah, okay, the brewery. Anyways, everybody have a really great weekend. Have a great time. Enjoy yourselves. Space Cowboy works. I feel like sometimes today is one of those days I feel like the Space Cowboy. I definitely feel, and it doesn't help that I turn the blinds wrong and then the LED lights don't work, so I'm more in a shadow. So every time I look up, I'm looking at myself getting darker and darker, and I feel sleepy. Maybe I don't need the comfy chair. Maybe you guys will get to hear me snore if I do it all wrong. Anyways, thank you, everybody. I really do appreciate everybody comes in and I get to see everybody. Yes. Yeah, Bowman, I got it finally. Stargazer on the second side. I think it's the second or third song on that side of the debut by Foreigner. But the Joker also has the Space Cowboy thing. So either or, maybe one of those songs is what I need to do as our intro music for the lives. There you go. Anyways, for me and my bad monkey. I don't know why I keep having this sit here. I didn't use it. You would think it'd be down with the amps, and for some reason I have the bad monkey up here just to make sure everybody sees the bad monkey every week. Play that damn guitar. That is a plan. That is a plan. When I get everything set up, that's one of the plans. Is you guys name that tune. So I'm hoping to open the shows like that, or somewhere in the show do I kind of set things up to get ready to do it, and haven't got everything else in place. But yeah, that was a thing. Either you guys are not going to know the music because you don't know crap, or I'm that bad of a player. We'll figure that one out however we want. Have a great evening. Go Suns. I don't know if I'm feeling it tonight. Woohoo. Yeah, I'm not feeling it. I'm kind of feeling they're kind of going maybe like the way the Nuggets-Lakers series is going. So I'm not going to root against them, but I'm not going to put any money down on a victory for tonight. So there we go. Jax is coming in because he's saying, hey, we got to go. We got to smoke, and we got to eat some pizza or something. Is that it, Jax? Yes, we have to. All right, so there we go. Thank you all for joining me. Thank you for the comments and the questions and all the really great stuff, and watching the videos each and every week and all that. And we will get back to you next week on Monday. Hey, wow, he's doing that nose on the arm thing. I was trying to go stop streaming, and he just jerked my hand up. You can't do that. No. But anyways, thanks for everybody joining us and being an active involved. Hope you have a great rest of the week. I'm going to have to use my left arm to pet him while I use the right arm to try to stop streaming. All right. So everybody have a great week, and I am out of here. So we'll catch me Monday, and then catch